I'm 82 years old. I have spent more time in 1967 than I have in any year since. I have replayed a single Tuesday afternoon in May more than 10,000 times. I have memorized every word of conversations that happened before you were born, dissected every glance, rewritten every ending in my mind until the memory has become more real than the life I'm actually living. My name is Eleanor, and I need to tell you something that took me 82 years to understand. The past is a graveyard, and I have been visiting that graveyard every single day for 55 years, bringing flowers to something that can't be brought back to life, mourning something that can't be changed, waiting for something that will never come. You think you're honoring the past by living in it. You think you're keeping people alive by keeping their memory alive. You think if you just think hard enough, long enough, carefully enough about what went wrong, you'll somehow find a way to make it right. But all you're doing is dying slowly while you're still breathing. Let me tell you about Michael. Michael was my husband for 3 years, my love for a lifetime. We met in 1964 at a library book sale. He was looking through poetry books. I was organizing romance novels. He made a joke about Byron being too dramatic, and I laughed. It was the first time I had laughed in months after my father died. We talked for 3 hours about books, about dreams, about the world we wanted to build together. We married in 1965, a small ceremony in my mother's backyard. Michael wore his father's suit. I wore my grandmother's dress. We honeymooned in a cabin by a lake, spent a week talking about everything and nothing, planning our future, dreaming about children and houses and growing old together. And on May 15th, 1967, a Tuesday that started like any other Tuesday, he left for work at 7:43 a.m. and never came home. Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light at 4:17 p.m., exactly 23 minutes before Michael was supposed to walk through our front door. Michael was 28 years old. I was 26. We were trying to have a baby. We were saving for a house with a bigger kitchen. We were planning a trip to Europe for our 3rd anniversary. We had 47 years of marriage ahead of us, and it ended in an instant because someone else decided to drink their lunch. The last thing I said to him was, "Don't forget to pick up milk on your way home." Not "I love you," not "have a good day," not "drive safely." Just a reminder about milk that he would never have the chance to forget. And I have spent 55 years dissecting that morning, analyzing every moment, wondering what would have happened if I had made him 5 minutes late by asking for one more kiss, if I had asked him to stay for one more cup of coffee, if I had told him I loved him instead of worrying about the damn milk that sat in our refrigerator unopened for 3 weeks after he died. But here's what I learned too late. Thinking about it doesn't change it. Analyzing it doesn't fix it. Replaying it doesn't bring him back. And spending 55 years in 1967 means I missed 55 years of 1968, 1969, 1970, and every year after that. I missed 55 years of sunsets, birthdays, Christmas mornings, spring afternoons, and ordinary Tuesday evenings that could have been beautiful if I had been present for them. The first hard truth I want you to understand: the past is not a place you can live. It's not a house you can move into. It's not a country you can visit. The past is a cemetery, and cemeteries are meant for brief visits, not permanent residence. When you try to live there, you become a ghost haunting your own life. After Michael died, people told me I was young, told me I would love again, told me I needed to move on. And I hated them for saying it. How dare they suggest that I replace Michael, that I forget him, that I act like he never mattered? So I made a decision. I decided that loving Michael meant never loving anyone else. I decided that honoring his memory meant preserving everything exactly as it was the day he died. I kept our apartment exactly the same for 15 years. His clothes still hanging in the closet, his work shirt still smelling faintly of his cologne, his coffee cup in the sink unwashed, with a brown ring stained permanently in the bottom. His book open to page 47 on the nightstand, The Great Gatsby, a book he would never finish reading. His slippers by the bed, still shaped to his feet, his toothbrush in the medicine cabinet next to mine, as if he might come home and need to brush his teeth. I turned our home into a museum, a shrine to a life that was over, and I became the curator of my own mausoleum. I dusted his belongings religiously, arranged his things just so, made sure everything stayed frozen in that last perfect Tuesday morning when he was still mine, still alive, still coming home. People would visit and tell me it wasn't healthy, and I would tell them they didn't understand true love, true loss, true devotion. I would tell them that some loves are so deep that they don't end when life ends. But the truth is, I wasn't honoring Michael. I was dishonoring life itself. I wasn't being faithful to his memory. I was being faithless to the woman he had loved, the woman he would have wanted to see happy, the woman he would have begged to keep living even if he couldn't live with her. I was turning love into a prison and grief into a career. The second hard truth: grief is not loyalty. Refusing to heal is not love. Staying broken is not a tribute to what you've lost. The people we've lost don't want us to stop living. They want us to live fully, completely, joyfully, even without them. Especially without them. I see people today, younger people, making the same mistake I made. They get their heart broken at 25, and they spend the next 10 years analyzing what went wrong, replaying every conversation, stalking their ex on social media, wondering what they could have done differently. They lose a parent at 30, and they spend the next 20 years feeling guilty every time they laugh, every time they feel happy, every time they have a good day without thinking about their loss. They think suffering is a sign of depth, that moving on is a sign of shallowness, that healing means forgetting. But healing doesn't mean forgetting. Healing means remembering without bleeding. Healing means carrying love forward instead of being buried under loss. I wasted 20 years of my life waiting for Michael to come back. Not literally, I'm not crazy. But emotionally, psychologically, I was waiting. Waiting for the pain to make sense. Waiting for the universe to explain itself. Waiting for some cosmic justice that would balance the scales. Waiting for a sign, a dream, a moment of closure that would finally make it okay that he was gone. And while I was waiting, life was happening all around me. My sister had 4 children who grew up calling me Aunt Eleanor, but never really knowing me because I was always somewhere else, always in 1967, always distracted by a ghost. My friends got married, bought houses, changed careers, traveled the world, lived their lives while I curated a museum to mine. The third hard truth: while you're waiting for the past to make sense, the present is passing you by. While you're trying to solve what can't be solved, life is solving itself without you. Time doesn't stop for your grief, your regret, your analysis, your need for closure. Time moves forward whether you move with it or not. In 1982, 15 years after Michael died, I met David. He was kind, patient, funny. He would come into the library where I worked, check out mystery novels, and always have something interesting to say about the last one he'd read. He started asking me about books, then about movies, then about life. He was clearly interested, clearly a good man, clearly someone who could make me happy. And I ran. Not literally, but emotionally. I built walls. I made excuses. I told myself that David deserved someone who could love him completely. And I was already spoken for by a dead man. I told myself that falling in love again would be a betrayal, that happiness would be disrespectful, that moving forward would mean leaving Michael behind. David tried for 2 years, 2 years of gentle persistence, of patient kindness, of showing up even when I pushed him away. And finally, he stopped. He found someone else, someone who wasn't married to a ghost, someone who could receive love instead of just mourning it. They had 23 years together before he died of cancer in 2007. I went to his funeral and watched his wife cry for the loss of a man who had loved her fully, completely, without reservation. And I realized I had thrown away the chance to love and be loved again because I thought suffering was sacred, because I thought moving on was moving away, because I confused loyalty with self-destruction. The fourth hard truth: love doesn't run out. Using your heart again doesn't use it up. Loving someone new doesn't love someone else less. Your heart is not a bank account with limited funds. Your heart is a muscle that gets stronger the more you use it. When you refuse to love again because you've already loved, you're not protecting your past love. You're wasting your present life. I spent 40 years in therapy, 40 years talking about Michael, analyzing our relationship, processing my grief, working through my trauma. And don't get me wrong, therapy helped. It helped me understand why I was stuck, how I got stuck, what kept me stuck. But understanding why you're in prison doesn't unlock the door. Knowledge about your patterns doesn't automatically break your patterns. I could tell you exactly why I couldn't move forward. I could analyze my attachment style, my fear of loss, my guilt about surviving. I could trace my issues back to childhood, connect the dots between my father's abandonment and my inability to trust that love could last. I understood myself completely and remained completely stuck. Because understanding is not the same as changing. Analyzing is not the same as healing. Knowing why you do something is not the same as stopping doing it. I spent decades becoming an expert on my own dysfunction while continuing to live dysfunctionally. The fifth hard truth: you cannot think your way out of an emotional prison. You cannot analyze your way to healing. You cannot solve the past by reviewing it endlessly. At some point, you have to stop studying the problem and start living the solution. At some point, you have to stop understanding why you're stuck and start doing what it takes to get unstuck. When I was 75, 7 years ago, something shifted. I was sitting in my apartment, the same apartment I had shared with Michael, looking at the same furniture, the same pictures, the same shrine I had maintained for decades. And I realized that I was dying. Not physically, though that was coming too. I was dying emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. I was a living memorial to a dead relationship. And I asked myself a question I had never asked before. What would Michael want from me? Not what would make me feel less guilty, not what would prove I had loved him enough, not what would demonstrate my loyalty to his memory. What would Michael, the man who had loved me, who had wanted me to be happy, who had planned a future with me, what would he want for the woman he had left behind? The answer was obvious. He would want me to live. He would want me to love again. He would want me to travel to Europe, even if I had to go without him. He would want me to be happy, even if my happiness didn't include him. He would want me to have a full life, even if that life looked different than the one we had planned together. The sixth hard truth: the people you've lost don't want you to lose yourself. They want you to find yourself. They don't want you to stop living because they can't live with you. They want you to live fully because they can't live at all. Honoring the dead means celebrating life, not mourning it forever. So at 75 years old, I started over. I sold the apartment that had been a museum for 48 years. I gave away Michael's clothes, not because I loved him less, but because I finally understood that keeping his shirts wasn't keeping him. I took down the shrine and put up new pictures. pictures of the life I still had time to live. I traveled to Europe alone. I ate gelato in Rome, watched the sunset in Santorini, walked through the Louvre in Paris. And yes, I cried. I cried for Michael, for the trips we never took, for the life we never lived. But I also laughed. I laughed at the absurdity of being 75 and finally taking my first international vacation. I laughed at my own terrible pronunciation of French words. I laughed because laughter is not betrayal, because joy is not disloyalty, because being alive is not an insult to the dead. I started dating. At 76, I started dating. Can you imagine? I felt ridiculous, getting dressed up for dinner dates, worrying about whether someone would call me back, figuring out how to flirt when I had been out of practice for 50 years. But I did it anyway, because I finally understood that it's never too late to start living, and it's never too early to stop dying. The seventh hard truth. It's never too late to choose life over death, present over past, hope over despair. As long as you're breathing, you have the opportunity to start over, to begin again, to write a new chapter. Age doesn't disqualify you from happiness. Loss doesn't disqualify you from love. The past doesn't disqualify you from the future. I met Harold when I was 78. He was 81, a widower who had lost his wife 3 years earlier. The difference between Harold and me was that Harold had grieved his loss and moved forward, while I had grieved my loss and moved backward. Harold remembered his wife with love, not with obsession. Harold honored his past without being imprisoned by it. We had 4 years together before he died last year. 4 years of companionship, laughter, travel, quiet mornings, and gentle evenings. 4 years of proving that love doesn't end when life ends, that hearts can hold multiple loves, that moving forward doesn't mean moving away from what matters. And when Harold died, I grieved him. I missed him. I was sad to lose another person I loved. But I didn't crawl back into the tomb of the past. I didn't turn his memory into a museum. I didn't punish myself for outliving someone else I cared about. I grieved cleanly, fully, and then I kept living. The eighth hard truth. Grief is not a life sentence. Loss is not a permanent identity. You are not defined by what you've lost, by who left, by what went wrong. You are defined by how you respond to loss, how you carry love forward, how you choose to live in spite of death, in spite of disappointment, in spite of heartbreak. I look at my life now and I see 2 distinct chapters. Chapter 1, 55 years of dying while alive, of living in a graveyard, of mistaking suffering for love and stagnation for loyalty. Chapter 2, 7 years of actually living, of loving again, of traveling, laughing, growing, changing, being present for my own existence. 7 years out of 82, 7 years of actually being alive. Do you understand what that means? It means I wasted 75 years mourning life instead of living it. It means I spent the vast majority of my existence as a ghost, haunting my own story. Don't do what I did. Don't spend decades in a graveyard of your own making. Don't mistake analysis for action. Don't confuse understanding for healing. Don't think that suffering makes you deep or that moving on makes you shallow. The 9th hard truth. The past is not your home. The past is not your identity. The past is not your future. The past is a collection of experiences that shaped you, not a prison that defines you. You can honor what was without sacrificing what could be. You can remember without reliving. You can carry love forward without carrying pain forever. Whatever you're carrying from the past, whatever hurt, whatever loss, whatever disappointment you're replaying in your mind, whatever Tuesday afternoon in your own personal may you keep returning to, I want you to know that you have a choice. You can keep visiting that graveyard every day for the next 50 years, or you can lay flowers one last time and walk back into the world of the living. It took me 82 years to understand that life is for living, that the present moment is the only moment you actually have, that while you're busy reliving the past, you're missing the gift of now, that while you're trying to change what can't be changed, you're ignoring what can still be created. Don't wait until you're 82 to start living in your own decade. Don't spend your 20s reliving your teens, your 30s mourning your 20s, your 40s analyzing your 30s. Don't turn your heart into a museum of old hurts. Don't turn your mind into a theater that only plays old movies. The people who hurt you don't deserve to live rent-free in your head for decades. The relationships that ended don't deserve to prevent new relationships from beginning. The opportunities you missed don't deserve to blind you to opportunities that are right in front of you now. I'm 82 years old. I wasted most of my life living in the past, but I still have time left, and I'm not going to waste another day in 1967. I'm going to live in today, in this moment, in this conversation with you, because this is where life is happening. This is where love lives. This is where joy is possible. Your life is waiting for you in the present moment. Stop making it wait.